he's the CISO for Toronto Community Housing. Now, Toronto Community Housing is a pretty large organization, has over 105,000 tenants, 55,000 households and units. It spends $1.3 million a day on 1,600 projects in there. And Azim has no problem getting money out of anybody because they're just so generous. So this is going to be a really lame session in there about talking about how we can communicate the importance of cybersecurity to executives. But we have no agenda. We have nothing. We're just going to talk about his experiences. So there we go. Watch us. So welcome. So how long have you been at the Housing Authority?
It's been a very, I can say, not a straight drive. It's a rough ride till now.
Oh, your mic up.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
As you said, the organization is very big enough, but they're more focused on one particular aspect of the organization, which is development, construction.
Development.
Yeah. So when they comes back to cyber, it's a different picture.
Yep.
Because things are not straight as in development. They need to be explained. They need to be understood to management why they need to bring so much money on this aspect.
Okay. You want to check that mic and see if it's turned off? That one?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to turn off this one because we're getting feedback from somewhere. Or maybe it's just our incredible personalities. Well, it's possible. Yeah. So, okay. So they're focused on development. Now, this happens in organizations, is that every organization and the management of it has a focus, and that there's nothing wrong with that. But so the question is, how do we communicate cybersecurity to people who want to talk about development?
So it's a good question. So for morning, which we have been seeing all the topics, which we've been discussing about proactive, discussing about legal, lawyers, insurance, and everything. Cybersecurity, in a sense, till date, which we have learned, is a top-down approach. We need to break from top to down the cyber practices across the organization. That means the top level has to understand why cybersecurity.
Yeah.
If I have to push this cybersecurity to the bottom people, there should be a direction, there should be a prioritization push across to the people on this part, which is not happening. What happened is normally we try to bring from the IT division and try to push across all the controls. People don't understand why suddenly the new controllers come, why you're doing these changes. And this is the big gap which is happening. It's a new beginning, which I can say. As a cyber officer, my role is beyond bringing controls, is to make the organization understand where are we going in terms of cybersecurity and why the management should be involved in the cybersecurity practices. Otherwise, because the times have changed, we are seeing breaches happening, as I said in the earlier conversation. Every week we are seeing 2 or 4 breaches happening. What's going with that breaches? It's not only the cybersecurity officer has been sacked, but also the CEO of the company's brand image has been taken into radar. What's going on with them?
So there's one of the things, and you've talked about it. You know, I did a thing with CISOs that I was in a group of CISOs that I knew, and they all stood up and talked about why management didn't understand them, all talking about terms from cybersecurity. And you just said it there. We need to start talking about brand image.
Yeah.
Right? And how this affects your brand image. Any other?
The major input which has to come to the business is, business always looks, what is the risk? As an organization, what risks I'm going to face, which has not been explained by the cyber practices across the board. If, as a business, they only see what are the colors I'm looking into this. Is my red mark coming? Is the market going across? They are not understand the technical jargons of cybersecurity. Therefore, they always push to IT people to handle cybersecurity. But when we start talking business and when we start talking about business risk, that time the C-level, the leadership, come into understanding of why cybersecurity should be a prioritization of an organization if it's not there, and they should focus on that.
But you're a technical guy, right? I mean, I'm a bit of a geek myself in there. But how did you start to learn? How did you learn to start to talk in the language of business?
That's a good question, because most of these cyber geeks are, and there's nothing wrong in that.
No,
they are experts.
Get lots of dates in high school.
Yeah. They're geeks, they're experts, and we grew like that. We been taught to go and just focus on...
Got beat up on our way to
focus on how to solve the problem.
Yeah.
But times have changed. When we see there's a problems happening, and as this morning you said, we are doing reactive approach day by day, day by day. How do proactive is going to happen? Proactive will happen only when we start sending these problems across the board. Yeah. It's not only just I'm sitting in the corner and solving the problems. The problem which is related to some business has to be explained to them why this is happening. Yeah. And this is where I started digging into this and trying to understand how much I have to explain to the management, how much I have to get them on my ship so they can sail along with me and say, okay, Azim, let's focus on this. Let's take prioritization of this and let's give more importance to this part of it, which is not easy. It takes time. It takes a lot of time to reach out to that C-level to understand why the cybersecurity officer sitting in the IT is trying to reach out to me, why the CEO should talk to him. And that was a question asked twice to me when I asked for meetings. I said, no, there is a change of environment. I have to explain to you. And then once we started explaining day by day, the things started changing.
Okay.
And it's not only CEO. Like, for instance, every organization has different departments. Legal, as we talked about, HR, procurement, finance. They should be the buddies of cybersecurity. If they are not, then you are on a different boat. You will be not solving cybersecurity practices easily.
But and so this is two things in there. One is you said, it takes repeated efforts. You can't give up the first time. And understanding people are busy, but you've also reached out to other departments, and so you go by and say, hi, I'm just drop in. I'm Azim. I want to talk to you. What do you?
Yeah. So what happened is basically when you, as a new joinee to any organization, you've been introduced as a cybersecurity chief over there, but your role doesn't stop there. It's first introduction, but you have to start communicating with them back every day. And I said, not every day, once in a week. Try to reach out to them, get out some time and select legal. Legal is the best buddy of cybersecurity, legal and privacy. You need to be very close to legal and privacy because all the MSAs, agreements, what you do across, cybersecurity practices has to go inside in that. How do you do that? When you sit with them, explain them the plus and minus, because as we are talking about Cloudflare and all these vendors who are in cloud, today, most of the organization doesn't know if I have to go with any cloud organization. Do I have all the controls of cybersecurity with that cloud vendor?
Yeah.
Who does check that? The legal and the cybersecurity together.
Yeah.
So that's a gap which has to be filled up. CFO should be your best buddy because the money comes from there.
Yeah, everybody
it's not only the budget of normal cybersecurity practices, but also if something happens, ransomware, where do you bring 300,000 to get this done? Who's going to give you the last emergency fund? CFO. Procurement. You're going outside the market to buy new things. She doesn't know what to buy in terms of, but when you start putting cyber practices in RFPs and everything, things started changing. People started looking into a different aspect. So it's a plus efforts to work with every department, not just only IT. IT days are gone. Cyber is more of a business risk, and you need to work with every department, including the enterprise risk management, which is, we are talking about insurance for morning.
Yeah.
Today, if you ask any insurance guy, they don't allow you because they have their own terms and conditions to answer. They have around about 50 questions to answer. 2 years back, insurance company never used to ask you questions.
Yeah.
So that's the change which we have seen.
Wow. And so the role has changed. You've got to be have much more outreach. Going out there, you have to be going out and asking people how you can help them in this. And so have you gotten a good response in doing that?
Initially not, because everyone has...
I love an honest man, by the way. Yeah. Initially not, yeah.
Initially not, because everyone...
I'm from cybersecurity and I'm here to help you.
Everyone has his own silo, and everyone is the king of that silo. King or queen, whatever you say. They don't want anyone else coming and saying, you should do this practices in a different way. But as you start showing them the value add in one or two requirements, they start coming back to you and asking questions. When they start asking questions, that time you should be ready enough to do your homework and give them the feedback in the right direction, what they've been expecting it. What happened is we just leave there. We just say, okay, when you come back, I'll see to it. No, you start pushing it. It has to be a push. If the push is not coming from your side, they are going to go to sleep immediately. They will say, okay, it's not my baby. Why should I look into this?
Yeah.
So this is where a cyber officer is very important to understand the game of the business, the organization where you're coming across. And again, it's not necessary you need to bring all the 20 controls in one go because it costs money. So you should also understand what is prioritization of
I think it's probably one of the endemic risks of our industry is if I can't do everything, I can't do anything. Instead of just saying I can move this part bit by bit by bit.
This comes with a strategy. As a cyber officer, my major role is to build a strategy for the organization. So if in a strategy, I know what are my prioritizations to bring in. I cannot bring 10 controls, fine, I know there's a gap. But for every gap, I need to know what I can try to mitigate that risk. So if I can bring first 4 and I can cover up 50%, next 50% I should be on high alert to understand how I'm going to take care of it.
Yep.
And this has to be communicated back to the management to explain to them why they should look into this. If after the 50% something goes wrong, don't come running. We know what to do. Like for instance, in the morning we were talking about incident management. Tell me how many organization has a proper incident management procedure when ransomware happens?
Yeah, I sometimes think we fail on topics though, like incident management. Who cares if you're not a security person? Like how we describe things is partly our own fault. Like you said, and I said I think you're really nice. Tell me what risk is to you. It's brand. Okay, so let's talk about the risk to your brand instead of talking about we're going to have a strategy or we're going to have governance or we're going to have. We tend to use our own terms, which insulates us. I think. Don't you agree?
I agree with that. And the problem is basically every organization will say, I have my ITSM role is running across. I have an IT incident place. But do you have a cyber incident attached to that IT incident, which is lacking today? And that's a big gap which has been there. Because I can just say service this call and I can finish the IT incident. But if there's a cyber incident, who's going to handle?
Yeah.
How that is going to be handled? That has not been discussed and that has not been properly practiced across, because that is not only just going to be IT or cyber, it has to be reviewed by the legal, it has to be reviewed by the cyber privacy team to get the proper cyber incident procedure in your day-to-day workshop.
Yeah, and this is, I think this is one of the places where we have to do outreach. One of the places I'll talk to you about is communication policies and stuff like that. We get occasionally a complaint goes across my desk, say, well, somebody phoned from your publication and they interviewed me and then they published it.
Yeah.
But yeah. My only question is, did they identify themselves as a reporter? Yes. Why weren't you trained in what communication you do at the time of an incident? Have you ever had that experience?
We have a problem because as I'm working across the board and as I'm working with across the organization, corporate communication is the main supporter of cybersecurity.
Yeah.
I can say it's your mouth of going and talking to the people, because you as a cyber doesn't go and talk to everyone. The corporate communication or the communication team should be a partner in crime with you to go and preach cyber practices across the board. And this is where communication plays a major role. And that's why I'm saying, when we're talking about C-level understanding of cybersecurity, these are all the leadership team from every department who comes and brings one platform where cyber goes and perform in front of them and tell them, you are my buddies, to work across with them to see how we can address the cyber practices properly.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Tell me what's the biggest mistake that, not you, but somebody, not you, but somebody you know has made in trying to communicate with executives?
Mistakes happens. There's nothing new in this part of it. If I say mistakes doesn't happen, it's a matter of how do you go and speak to management and tell them how much time I'm going to take to solve all these problems.
Oh yeah.
It's the biggest mistake which you always do it. You say, oh, I will do it in the next 3 months. But you need to understand who's going to do all those things. If you're, like for instance, most of the public sector, I come from that, unionized environment, there is a norm of process of working. You cannot just say, I can do it tomorrow. You need to do a proper process and everything. And if I go and promise my management, I can do it in 3 months. And if that's not practical, then something is going to come back. So these mistakes happen. This will only happen when you don't do your homework properly, when you don't do your study properly. And you give the wrong impression to the management, this will be taken care of easily. And that's a little bit a big problem for everyone in this one.
I have a tip for you. In a non-unionized environment, they find excuses for not doing things too.
I agree.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
It's any big enterprise. Enterprises have their own protection systems, like an immune system.
In non-unionized environment, they are very overwhelmed with the work. They don't have time.
This has been fantastic. Thank you for joining and for agreeing to do this with me. There we go. So there's a real practitioner, somebody who's doing this. And I think the lessons I take away from this are, you got to be tenacious. You got to go back time and time again. You got to, when you make a mistake, you got to just get back up and do it again. Thank you, sir. This has been fabulous. Round of applause.